I'm working on an overlay tool for gamer content creators. Learn more about the big picture here with my overview video. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to add your customized overlays to your timeline in Adobe Premiere Pro while keeping your data visuals synced. If you plan to give this a try, you're going to need a few things. Firstly, a compatible game. You can go to my website to see what your options are, but at the time of recording, only Minecraft is available. You will also need a bit of knowledge about how to mod the game. There's a mod you can download from my website that you need to add. This is what publishes the data and makes the data available. I'm going to be using the FTB launcher, but you can use whatever mod loader you like, just as long as you're using my mod, which is a Fabric mod. You're going to need some editing software. I'll be using Adobe Premiere Pro, but all you're doing is adding an image on top of a video, so it's pretty simple. You will need a little bit of disk space because the images will get stored locally on your machine. And finally, this does take a little bit of time to get your head around and set up, so set aside a couple of hours for this. The first thing you're going to need to do is head over to the Confused Hero website. My previous video was all about how to use this portal, so if you want to, check that video out. But the first thing you're going to want to do is get the mod you need. Now, if you go to the game titles tab on the site, you can see some of the mods that we currently have available. I'm actively developing some of these, and I really hope to create quite a large catalogue over the coming months and years, and even get other modders involved, and where they can sort of add to the community, add their own mods to the community. But at the moment, the only one that's really stable and working is the Minecraft one. So go ahead and download that. There's the hash of the file there, so you can confirm that you've got the right download. You need to then go ahead and install that as you would any other Minecraft mod. You know, it's a case of just dropping the zip, I think it's a jar actually, into the mods directory. Once you've done that, you'll also need to go over to the Downloads tab. And you're going to be using the Confused Hero Layouts in Edit Image Builder. You can download that from here as well. I'll be showing you that a bit later in the video. The next thing to do is set up players. Now, I regularly play with the same people, so what I've done is set this up so you can kind of manage people in groups. But if you go to the My Profiles tab and then hit the Manage Player Config Groups, here you can go ahead and create a group. I've created one called Confused Hero and Rocket Fist. This is just me and Rocket, and you can go in here and upload icons. Next week, I'm going to be covering uploading your own graphics into the site, so you can use your own animations and thumbnails and icons and things. I'll be going into this a lot more detail next week. For each player, and provide colors. This kind of affects how things look in the GUI, you know, and we'll see a lot more of that later. But any player that you're going to have in the game, you need to list them here and kind of give a color for them. The icons you can add later. Once you've done that, save changes. Now the next thing to do, create a game. So if I go over to my games, create my game, I'm going to call this one Demo 1. We need to populate the players. So from the players drop down, I'm going to pick the group of people that we just created under the My Profiles tab, and under game title we're going to be picking Minecraft, and go ahead and save that. The next thing to do is to start the game. Now you're going to want to make sure that the log file is empty. I use the Feed the Beast app launcher to play Minecraft, but you can use any, it really doesn't matter. I'm just using this mod pack at the moment. Going to head over to the logs folder and just make sure that the logs folder is empty. Just kind of makes things a little bit easier if the log file doesn't contain data from previous games. And then we're going to start the game. Wonderful. The next thing we want to do is go ahead and start OBS, and I'll just do that. I'll start that record off screen. So let's create a world. Call it demo 1. I'm going to allow cheats just to speed things up. But that's all we need to do. Excellent. Wonderful. So you don't have to start your game immediately. If you want to find a nice location to get started, you can do that. But once you're ready to start recording the data, we can do that by just typing / and then start. Now, this is when a gaming session begins. I'm just going to hit / and just do test start. That just gives me a bunch of items to test with. I'm going to play for about a minute here. We don't need a big recording. Going to collect a bit of dirt, and then I'm going to maybe cut down some wood, and then maybe get one more tree over here, and then a bit more dirt. Excellent. And a couple more items just to finish off. Cool, that gives us something to play with. So I'm now going to type stop session, and we can go ahead and quit our game. The next thing I want to do is open up Adobe Premiere Pro. Create a new project and call my sequence demo 1. So I'm going to do import, and I'm going to import my video. Add it to the timeline. Now let's trim it. We only really need a few seconds just before I hit that start command, and then we've got, can get rid of the ending as well. Okay, so this is our video. Now the next thing you want to do is find that let's go, and I'm going to zoom right in here because I want to find the exact frame where that let's go first appears. There you go. So if I hit left on the keypad, it disappears. If I hit right on the keypad, it appears. So I know that this is the frame where the let's go appears, and I'm going to add a marker there just so I don't lose it. And I'm also going to take the timestamp and I'm going to copy that to the clipboard. So this is the time we know the session begins. Now, when the session ends isn't as important. It only really matters if you're having multiple sessions, so if you're coming back the next day to continue recording, which in this case we're not, but just for the sake of it, I'm going to add a marker here as well. So that says stop. You don't need to be terribly accurate with the stop if you're not re-continuing the session. Excellent. That'll do for now. Right, back to the portal. What I want to do next is upload the log file. Under selected game, log files, choose file. This is where you're going to navigate to the game that you just played, that folder that you emptied out at the beginning, and we're going to just upload this latest file. Click upload, bang, that's done. And then under sessions, we can edit this, add a sessions record, and if we go back to Adobe, I can copy the time when the session began and the time the session ended. So sessions are really used to line the video up with the data that we're seeing in the log file. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. So I've uploaded the log file, and I've put in the Adobe timestamps of when the start and the end of the session was. Next, we need to make a layout. So if I go to my layouts, and I'm going to create a new one. Now, I went through this in great detail in my previous video, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it here, but I'm going to create a, let's call it demo dirt. I'm going to stick with 300 by 300. That makes sense. And just so thumbnails can be created, I'm going to copy the ID of the game. Go back to my selected layout, and I'm going to use that as the default game. The reason for that is when the thumbnails get created to show you what your previous layouts all your layouts look like, it needs data to be able to produce those, so you can just tell it what's a good example of a game to use to produce that data. If I go to my layouts, you can see all the previous ones that I've created for my various other videos. Where was I? So I've created a layout called demo dirt. Let's add an item. I like to start off with a label. Just kind of makes things a bit easy. Let's set the width as the width of this. I'm going to say might as well use the one I've already got. Player confused, right? Go back to the layout to save it. Cool, that says I have 0 dirt. If you can scroll this bar, you can see how those numbers change. This will line up with the video timestamp. Cool. Another thing worth doing is adding just a little bit more to this. I'll add a dirt icon. When you add an icon, dirt is the default, so I don't change the image there. But you can just put the name of anything in any item in Minecraft. That will work. What else can we do? Let's add something else just to make this a bit more interesting. Let's add a score table. So let's have dirt and oak logs, I think. Cool, so dirt, oak logs, and in fact what I'm going to do is I'm going to add oak logs again, but this time rather than have the inventory update, I'm going to use total items. No, we use blocks broken. There you are, just to have something different. Save that. Actually, let's make that a bit smaller, scale that down a little bit. There we go. Excellent. Right, the next thing I want to do is I want to actually now produce all the images that I can add to my overlay as an overlay within Adobe. The way you do that is you request it. So there's an image requests tab here. I'm going to just click on the image requests tab and we're going to fill out this form. So I'm going to call this main. I'm only going to have one, so I don't need that. We need to state what time we want the image to start and what time we want it to end. I'm going to start at the same moment. Actually, let's just do it a few seconds later. Let's do it. Start it at 38:00. Oops. 38:00. So just no, a bit later than that actually. Just kind of want to prove it doesn't have to. Yeah, I'll start from here. I'll start from 1:51. I just kind of want to prove that it doesn't have to be when the video starts. You've got the session, which is what ties data to your video, but you can generate images within that, anywhere within that session. So I'm going to add another marker. Let's make this one a different color. Lovely. Let's take that time, stamp, come over to the portal and put in when we want that to begin. Back here, and then we're going to produce images for the whole thing, really. Let's stop there. So just going to copy this timestamp here. Lovely. I'm going to produce the image at 50% quality. I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but to produce images uses my servers, and my servers cost money, and I need to kind of limit how much people can use them. You know, if people just come in here and say, I want to create hundreds of thousands of images that are in the highest resolution, that are 4K, you know, it's just gonna kill my servers, and it's not really going to allow anybody else to use them if it only takes one person to just kind of tie it up. So I'm going to start off with 50% quality, and I'm going to use level 3 in the color precision. I use quite hefty compressions in order to transfer the data. So, you know, the more colors you're allowed, the less efficient the compression is. So I kind of I like to reward users for really not using more colors than they need. The default is level 3, which is just over 4,000 different colors. I find that to be pretty sufficient for most things. I want to consider level 4 really when you produce your final image, which is the one you go ahead and use. But I'm going to leave it at level 3 at the moment. Frames per second, let's keep it as 60, just to keep things simple. And I'm going to make the image output the same as my overlay. Sorry, say as the layout, 300 by 300. Excellent. Let's go ahead and save that. Cool. The next thing to do is actually to import my layout that I created into this game, so I associate the layout with the game. Later on, when we do things like load layouts into browsers, you don't want to be loading more than you need, just to keep things kind of efficient. So under Edit, I'm going to click Add and Remove. This has got all mine on here. It is in alphabetical order. This is the one, Demo Dirt. Okay, there you go. It's imported. Now I have the Demo Dirt. We can go back into our and then image request config. We're going to start right at the beginning, and we're going to say Demo Dirt. That just sets, really just to set a default. This is going to be a lot more interesting and be a lot more obvious what's going on here when we add more than one view. So I'm going to click Save, and that's it. We can now go ahead and kick off the job by clicking Run Request. This is going to produce 3,310 images or frames, because we're running this at 60 frames a second. Each frame is going to cost us 1 credit, and therefore it's 3,310 credits for the whole data. That's rounded, that's 4K. So let's just kick that off. Whilst that's running, we can click Show Job just to check our progress. It's just a waiting dependency at the moment. Let me refresh. See, it says it's progressed at 34%, so it is running. This only updates, I think, every 10 seconds. So you can sit here and click refresh after about 10 seconds. You can see it's jumped. What we're producing is really, really small, so I really don't think it's going to take that long. But the next thing while we're waiting for that to run is to start up the file that you downloaded from the Downloads tab, the in-edit image builder. When you fire that up, what you'll be greeted with is this. If it's the first time you'll run it, you'll need to enter a working directory path. This is somewhere my application can use just some disk space on your machine that it can use. I'm using this location here. It's just a path that I've created within the temporary directory of my C drive, and it just so the software can function, it needs to be able to write locally and use some temporary space. So you have the opportunity here to kind of specify that path. So it's just a space that we can work in. I'm going to paste that in there and just kind of set that as a default. The next question you get asked is your public Confused Hero Layouts ID. This is the ID that you get issued, which you're allowed to share. It's a public ID. It's just if you want to connect as a friend or just kind of identify you very easily if you're on a support desk or something. Very easy to do that. You'll find it under the My Profiles tab right at the top here, and I'm just going to enter that in there. Next, you need your server token, because we're running a application that that you typically want to run on a server. You're going to need your server login. Now, this is not public. You don't want to share this code. It's hidden behind this copy to the clipboard. I've clicked that button. It's now on my clipboard. I'm not going to share that publicly. If you do share that with someone publicly, then they will be able to log on as you and spend your tokens and make changes on your behalf. So I'm going to paste that code in here and hit enter. And you can see that this has got identified that there is a job that needs to run. The job it is referring to is this job here. This is the image request that we requested. I'm going to go ahead and click Y on that, and it's going to start downloading the data. It will pull the images, those 3,000, what was it, 3,310 images. It will extract that zip and then build the directory in that working directory that you specified. Once this is finished, I'll show you the working directory. Right, that's finished. It says it's got nothing to do, so I'm just going to put that to the side, and we can have a look at the working directory. So jobs, this is the job that ran. Every time you click run request, you're going to be, every time you click run request and click one of these, it will kick off a job. And then under results, you can see that we've got our demo 1, which is the name of the game, and then main, which is the name of the image request. And in here, you can see we have all of the images that have now been produced. So if I now head over to Premiere Pro, I'm just going to copy this to the link to the clipboard. Head over to Premiere Pro, click Import, put in that link, select your first image, and click Image Sequence, and click OK. Now what we can do is drag that to the blue. This is where we said that we wanted our image request to start from, and this is where we said we want it to end. And it's really small. We can just reposition that and scale that up. It's 300 by 300 pixels because that's what the image request was. But we said the quality was 50, so this output will actually be 150 by 150 because we halved it. But let's make that much bigger so we can see what's going on. And if I sort of slide this up and down, you can see that these numbers are changing dynamically. If I play it for a second. Okay, so this is interesting here. This counter, if you remember, I said was how many oak logs we were holding in our inventory, and then this one was how many blocks we'd broken. So because they are slightly different things, you can see as soon as I break that first block there, you can see that the number 1 counter, and then as I walk forward, I haven't got it. Looks like I just picking one up now. You can see it sort of into my inventory. That's when this jumps to 2 because I picked up those 2 logs at the same time. So that's what this is doing. It's whatever counters or scores that you sort of put in the first place, you'll see those there. And it might be a good moment for me to talk about which scores are available. If you go back over to the title games and then click details, I'm going to, this isn't the full list yet, but I'm going to be writing out under the notes here all the various different scores that are available for each game. And you can see the XCOM ones has a lot more But yeah, that's kind of how that's going to work. Right, the next thing I want to do is create a second layout so I can show you how to transition between them. So what I can do is I'll start off by duplicating this one. I'm going to rename the ID of this to be the dirt label, and I'm going to rename this ID to be score table. Before I go ahead and do the duplication, it just kind of makes things a little bit easier a bit later on. But I'm going to click duplicate layout, and I'm going to have let's call this something else. Let's call this oak, demo oak. Go ahead, right? I'm just going to go ahead and save that straight away. So we now have two, if I click selected games layouts, so we go selected game, layouts, edit, add or remove, and now we need to find it. Demo oak, I think it's that one. You can see where I was doing some rehearsals earlier. Yeah, that's now appeared over here. I can click save changes. Wonderful, and now we've got two. Heading over now to the demo oak, and then let's make this a little bit more oak focused. I'm gonna move this label off the top, so let's give it a position of negative 50, and then the same for this, negative 40, just to move it up 50. Lovely. And then we're going to take this, and I'm going to maybe move it a little bit higher and shrink it down. So I'm just, at this point, all I'm doing really is just creating a little bit of space at the bottom. So we can add something else. Let's add a header table. So if I pop that here, it looks like it's got cobble as default. Let's use oak instead, and then we can have oak logs, and then save that. Oh, it's oak log, not oak logs. Let's get that right. Save that. Now, what I've done is, because I duplicated these, they're going to have the same IDs, which means when I switch between them, they're naturally going to animate. Interpolation frames will get created for the edit as well, so you'll see the same effect in the edit, and I'm going to demonstrate that. What I think we should do is go back to our Premiere Pro and just kind of have a look, find a nice point where we start chopping down a tree. Where do we chop down a tree? Here, right? So at this point I chop down my tree, so I'm going to grab that timestamp of 2:08, back into the portal. This is much easier when you're not recording your screen, because I'd normally have these on two different monitors. Image requests, go back into the config, let's add another record, and we're going to switch to our oak. We do need to click the edit button, which is irritating, but config again. I'm going to paste that in there. So at 2 minutes and 8 seconds into the video, we are going to switch to the view oak, and I think we should switch back as well, maybe once the tree is cut, let's say there, so 2:14. So add 2:14, we're going to go back to the normal view and save that. What I want to do now is rerun the job. When I hit run request, what you'll notice is we don't need to regenerate all 3,500 frames. We only need to regenerate the 403 frames that have changed. And that's what I mean by running the delta. You're running the difference. You can, if you want, reproduce the entire image again. which would be all 3,000 frames, you'd get charged 4,000 credits for doing so. But this process has really been designed so you can just kind of reproduce little parts of your videos without having to rerun the whole thing. It's just much more efficient and much faster. So I'm going to go ahead and run that. That should run very, very quickly. And there it is. So if I hit any key here, you can see there's another one to do. And that's done. So if we head over to round about where the 8-second mark was, you can see that switches from one view to the other and then switches back. Now I've noticed, if I zoom in there, that this oak score, I think it's got a header score component at the bottom there, isn't animated. The reason for that is because if we take another look at our views, go back to the selected views, this demo one doesn't have that oak component. It doesn't exist here, and therefore it doesn't animate it. It will fade in and fade out. What you can do is, if you can add it if you want, let me do that. Add item, header table, put that down here. Might make it so you could copy components between views. That might be quite helpful. Save that. Now I'm assuming it was so it's got an ID. We need to keep the IDs consistent, so I'm going to call this the oak tab for oak table. Doesn't matter what it is, it's just an ID. And then head over to the other view, and we can make sure that this has the same ID. We also make sure that this is using the same scores. What did I call this? I think I just called it oak. Yeah. You can see now that the word oak is animated, but the numbers aren't. So something's not quite right. I wonder if that makes a difference. There you go. Because all the IDs are the same, they will naturally animate. If I make this one much bigger, maybe down the left here, we can click save and then go back to the view, the selected game view. You can see it'll animate like that. Let's rerun that. Image request, run request. Only 62 frames have changed because it's only the interpolation frames that changed. I haven't changed either of the views. All I've done is given them IDs, which means they now animate. So those 60 frames where the animation is taking place, the animation has changed, and therefore they need to be reproduced. So let's go ahead and run that. Let's go over here. And you can now see that animates as it leaves. We'll check the beginning as well. So the whole thing now looks like this. So I think I'll leave the video running with the final edit. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you give my software a go. Thanks for watching. Cheers, mate.